You've spent years working and working and doing your very best for your family. And in times you find that you've had to sacrifice. You either couldn't make, a child's piano recital or a concert that a child was doing, or you couldn't support your significant other at their business dinner, or you couldn't even go out and play, softball if you wanted to, or say if you wanted to go bowling, with your friends. When's the last time you had a vacation? If that's you, this episode is for you. Hello, and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January 2023, you have seen the ups, downs, sideways, everything that goes on with Embracing the Fight. And you know it was designed first to help normalize the conversations surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. And then I started off, talking about my journey through thyroid cancer, which I am claiming that I'm 100% healed. Now, the last time that I went to the doctor, they said that, my labs show increasing tumor markers, but that can mean many things because the margins on the PET scan and CT scan, everything was clear. So we're praising God for that. And before, I really get into the episode, I want you all to click like, comment, and share. You know, just tell somebody about embracing the fright. It's free. And if you find something that helps you, imagine how it could help someone else. All right. You can find me everywhere basically on social media. Well, on the major platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, um, X, and Blue Sky as Embracing the Fight. The only difference is on Instagram, it is Embracing the Fight underscore. Now, if you have a story, I would love to have you to come on and share your story, your testimony. And if you'd like to do that, just send me an email at operations@diversitydesign.com, or you can send me a message, a DM anywhere on those platforms that I just named on social media, because I would love to have you tell your story. Because you realize every time you tell your story, there's a possibility that it can help someone else. It can help someone heal. It can help someone to see that, you know what, they're not the only one that's going through it. And this is what it looks like on the other side. All right, so let's jump into today's episode. Travel more, stress less. So, you've been working for the majority of your life. I know I started working when I was like 15 years old. I may have been 14, come to think of it, because they had, this thing at school where you get a little paper and get permission from your parents, and then you could go and work. And my first job was at Wendy's. And I remember working and working and working and, saving the little money I had just to buy, things that I wanted, like clothes and shoes and things of that nature. But then when I became an adult, and I got what you call a real job. I say real job because it came with benefits. It wasn't part time. It wasn't, something that I could just show up for and do what I need to do and leave, leave everything at home. But I mean, at work, when I first got my very first job, as an adult, I worked in Mobile, Alabama at a place called Wholesale. And I was working 50, 55, 60-hour weeks sometimes, because I was trying to learn the business and I was trying to, understand, how everything worked. And I wasn't taking, any vacations. But the good thing was this company was an international company. So I had the opportunity to see several countries because of it. And I realized, I said, wait a minute, just because I'm traveling for work doesn't mean I can't get out there and enjoy and see the sights. Like, for instance, I remember one of the first trips that I took was to Puerto Rico, and we were trying to have a deal done with a company over there that was trying to get fly ash, to Wholesale. Well, anyway, while I was there, I met the owner of the company that we were meeting with, and she was the sweetest lady. And she was like, I'd love for you to, stop by my home. So I was like, well, okay, cool. Here I was, maybe 24, 25 years old. And I was walking down those streets and I was like, what in the world? I mean, everything looked, old and rustic. I mean, it was beautiful. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but it was beautiful. And when I got to the address that she told me to come to, it reminded me of like an old warehouse. But when she opened the door, I had never seen anything like that before in my life. There were plants, that were hanging from the ceiling that were being watered by mist that was prompted by the rainwater that had settled on top of her roof. She had some type of system that was, misting these plants and stuff, but that wasn't even the coolest part. She had all the exposed brick and wood and everything. And while I'm sitting there talking to her, the first thing she said was, would you like to work over here? And at the time, I was just like, no, I want to go back to, my home in Alabama. I knew Puerto Rico was the United States as well, but I wanted to be close to my family. That was kind of far, if something happened. And I was, fresh out of college, and I wasn't, really thinking about, the possibility of all the beautiful things that I could see and do while I was in Puerto Rico. I was thinking like, I don't want to be over here. I don't know nobody. But anyway, what she told me truly, truly stuck with me. She was like, okay, every time that the company sends you somewhere, make sure that you get out, meet some people, enjoy the sights, travel, see what you can see, taste what you can taste. Now, I didn't do that taste what you can taste because some of that stuff you look at it, you're like, what in the heck is that? And some stuff look like it might bite you back. So I didn't eat that stuff. I left that stuff, I left that stuff alone. So fast forward, I want to say it was the next job that I had. Because with the first job, um, I was able to travel to Switzerland because that's where, the main or the corporate or the home office was. And when I was in Switzerland, I actually had a friend that worked with me in Alabama that was from Croatia. And she was like, well, when you get to Switzerland, that you can catch a flight for much cheaper if you are already in Europe. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, think about it. You got to fly from the United States to Croatia. It's going to be extremely expensive. But if you have to fly from Switzerland to, say, Serbia, and get somebody to drive you over to Croatia, then, it's much cheaper. I was like, okay, let's do it. So when I was in Switzerland, she set it up, as far as she told me what, airline to get, and I couldn't understand anything in the airport. I mean, I couldn't read any of the signs because, everything was like either, well, some of it was in English, but the majority of it was like in German, Swiss German. So I was like, what in the world? Where am I? But here I was, my little 24-year-old, little 25-year-old self saying, you know what, this is an adventure. If it doesn't kill me, I'm going to have some great stories, after this is over. So I am in this airport and I realize that I'm in a crop duster. And I'm in a crop duster flying from Switzerland to Serbia. And, you growing up, you used to hear all those stories about Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Serbia and the war, and things like that. And I was just like, oh my God, what's it gonna look like? I'm terrified. When I get there, or I should say, when I got there, the landscape was so beautiful. I mean, it was so green and so plush and so pretty. I was like, I was missing out because here I was thinking the whole time that I'm over here in Switzerland, I'm in this class. And I'm here for a month and I'm supposed to learn this stuff and I'm supposed to do all these different things for the company. I'm supposed to go to all these company events. I'm supposed to do all this stuff. I did that stuff, but on the weekend, I made sure that I traveled so I could see, what the world truly looked like. So then imagine now I'm in Serbia. And there's a man, when I come out of the airport, he's holding a sign that's got my name on. I was like, yes, because he doesn't speak English. He speaks Dutch. So I go over to him, I smile, I point to myself, I have my driver's license, I show it to him, he nods, he grabs my bag, and he's trying to talk to me, and I'm just like, no. Like, no. And then, back then we didn't have the phones that'll translate for you. So it was just like, I just smile and nod, hoping that yes, he's taking me where I need to go. So anyway, I'm riding and he's still talking to me. I don't know what the heck he's saying. I'm trying to answer. He understands some of my English, but not, not very much of it. But anyway, we're driving along and I'm just looking at the countryside and it starts getting really dark because it's very, very late now. So I don't know what this place looks like that my friend has for me. She tells me, "Oh, my father has a villa on the countryside." And I'm like, a villa? I've never heard of anyone having a villa. So I'm thinking a villa is a little, small building and, you got a, you know, little place to stay and that's that. Well, anyway, I go in and there's a person there that they let me in and they show me to my room and I go to the room. I'm still not, really paying attention to everything around me because now it's like after midnight and I'm exhausted. So I wake up the next morning because these floor to ceiling windows, these blinds just open. And when I look out, I'm on a cliff and I see the Adriatic Sea. And I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Like, where am I? This is gorgeous. So I'm looking around and I'm like, man, I need to get out because the lady that I met in Puerto Rico told me that when I traveled, that I needed to go somewhere and be somewhere, that I got to see the people and I got to be a part, of the landscape and not just to lay around and not do anything or just, soak up the time that you're there. So I get out and I'm going into the old town or the old area and it's like little kids everywhere and they're just running up to me and I don't know what the heck they're saying, but they're giving me flowers. They're giving me like these little pieces of candy. They're giving me bottles of water. And I mean, they're like giving it to me like kid after kid. And I'm walking around with arms, full of stuff. And I'm walking through the city and I'm trying all these different foods and stuff. And when I say I absolutely loved it, I loved it. So then when I got back, to the house, at first I was like, is this where I left from? Because it's humongous. And there's like a butler there and there's a maid. And the butler asked me, what was it like going into the town? Because I was so excited because he spoke English. And he was like, you would you like a bicycle? And I was like, shoot, yeah, give me a bicycle. So I got a bicycle, went all up in the hills, and I wasn't even thinking about snakes and stuff like that. I was just wanting to take all this in because at that age I realized that life was more than just working. So that's really what I want to talk to you all about. Travel more and stress less. When is the last time that you looked at that paycheck that you've been getting and you said to yourself, you know what? It's time for a vacation. It's time for me to go to the spa. It's time for me to do something nice for me. Because when you do that, you know what happens? Your stress level comes down. All that cortisol and, you know, that bad stuff, those insulin levels, all that stuff starts to come down and starts to regulate because you are calming your nervous system. So when your nervous system is in a constant state of fight or flight, then you start to get sick. Your blood pressure goes up. You start to gain weight. Your hair starts to fall out. Your teeth hurt. Your bones hurt. You stand up, everything's cracking and popping. And a lot of people say, you know what? When you turn 30 years old, you can't just jump off stuff. Yes, you can if you calm your nervous system, if you exercise and don't stress yourself. A lot of people try to put, how bad their life is or how bad they feel off on you because they think that's normal. That doesn't have to be normal. Normal is what you make it for yourself. So think about it like this. Now, here I am. Back to the story. Here I am on this little bicycle. I'm riding along, and I realize that I am near one of the facilities that, is a part of the group that my company, owns. So I'm like, what city am I in? And there's this little square peg that's on the ground and it says Cormachno. So I get over there and there are people that are jumping off the side of where the plant is into the water. And I'm like, what the world? Because it just didn't look normal because these people worked at the plant. This is lunchtime, break time, and everybody's going swimming. And they got a little like grill or something over there. They made a little makeshift grill and they're bringing, fish and they're frying it and they swimming and having a good time. I walk over and they're like, join us. And I'm like, oh, you speak English. So I go over there too. They give me a tour of the plant and everything. And you know what the plant manager does? The plant manager at the time, tells me, hey, this, since you came here to visit, this is, official business. You can get reimbursed, for this trip. And I'm like, really? I can? And he was like, yeah. So, he said, talk to your manager about it. I'll let him know, because I actually helped them with a couple of projects while I was there because I was a process engineer. They asked me some questions about, what was my plant doing and how were we doing certain things because they had some similar systems. And I was like, oh, this is what we do. And the guy was like, oh yeah, you are working on vacation. So I was reimbursed for that. So I went there for free. And all because this lady planted this seed, in my head that when you go for work, it doesn't always have to be work. You don't have to stay in a hotel. You don't have to bring your work home and do work. You have to live. So in order to live, you have to be willing to get out there and try something different. So think about it. Here I was, what, 24, 25, like I said, and I was traveling alone in a country that, they didn't speak English for the most part. And there was no translators around. I was just, on a wing and a prayer, and the Lord was with me because nothing happened because I'm here now. But anyway, let's fast forward. So the next company I worked for, their headquarters was in Belgium. So we had a trip where we went to Belgium, we went to France, we went to Germany. We saw all these different countries, while we were there. Now, I did travel with two other people on this one, but every chance I got to get away from them, I did. I would go out, to the square. I went over to the Louvre. I was taking pictures on that, the bridge that has all the locks on it in Paris. And when I say I was everywhere, I was on the Eiffel Tower. I was snapping all kinds of photos. But I was making sure, that I did what I had to do for work. But I said, you know what? I have to decompress. Because if I don't, my nervous system is going to be nuts and I'm going to be stressed and I'm going to have high blood pressure. I'm going to have all this stuff. So at this time, I'm in my 30s. So now imagine as I get closer, to my 40s, I say, you know what? I need to take some vacations of my own. Now, I had done it before. I've been on cruises and things like that. But I said, let me go somewhere that I've never thought about going. So we tried Curacao. I have never seen Gila monsters or anything that big before that will actually come and get in your swimming pool and look at you like, this is my house. What are you doing here? And then we had all kinds of lizards and stuff in the house. But that's a whole nother story for another time. I say that to say this. I have worked hard all of my life. And some people probably saying, you just work, you ain't working hard. No, I worked in mining and minerals for 22 years. And in those 22 years, I have learned a whole lot. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of men that go out and work hard for their families every day. I mean, some of them are mechanics, some of them drive heavy equipment, some of them, you know, work in the mine itself, like as laborers, digging and shoveling and, cleaning and doing things of that nature. And it's like, when do they relax? When do they get some relief? So let me talk about a couple of guys that worked for me. One of them had a fifth wheel. And every opportunity that he got when he couldn't like use up all his vacation to get, the money for it, he would take his wife and grandkids and that fifth wheel would be up the highway, all up, the eastern seaboard. And he'd be having a good time because he knew what it meant to, relax and spend time with his family. Now, we used to sometimes have to pry him off of his equipment because it was like, sir, you need to take some vacation. Don't lose your vacation this year. Go ahead and take the time off because you need to reset. Because he was in, he wasn't like skinny or muscular or anything like that, but he was in fairly good shape. Because every time he went to do his physicals and stuff, he didn't have to take all his medication and stuff because he understood what it meant to allow his nervous system to be calm. He knew what it meant to take a vacation. And then on the flip side, we had some other people that were always sick. Or when they retired, they died. And you ask, what type of vacations did they take? What did they do? And no one could tell you because when they weren't working, they were just at home, just sitting, doing nothing because they were thinking about, oh, I need to get back to work, or oh, I need to do this when I return to work. And it's like, you do realize that if you die or you get so sick that you can't work, that someone else is going to take that job and they're going to forget all about you, not because they don't like you or not because they hate you. It's because the business must go on. So if that's the case, why don't you realize that your life must go on? So in order for your life to go on, you need to be healthier. You need to feel better, reduce your stress. So I encourage you to get out and go on vacation. And if you think vacations are expensive, there are some amazing travel agents out there that can get you vacations that are well within your budget. And some of them will even give you some free things if you're really nice. Because I know I got some free stuff a few times just for being really nice. But I'm saying that to say this, don't talk yourself out of going on vacation and spending time with people you love just because you think it's too expensive. Because you can get a vacation for $150, $200, you know, for 4 people. And I know you're probably like, how in the world can you do that? Okay. So if you know someone who has a timeshare and they're sitting on it and they, had the hardest time renting and they don't want to pay that maintenance fee and they don't want to, you know, do anything with it, $400 covers, you know, the maintenance fee for a few days. That's money in their pocket. You just have to find the right person who has something where you want to go. So if you can dream of it, it's possible. So stop stressing. Stop taking work home. Because it's not, okay, you think about it like this. You taking work home. Why can't work take you on vacation? Because, I mean, it's essentially the same thing. You bring your work home, you are not spending time with your kids, you're not spending time with your significant other, your spouse, and you are constantly stuck to this work. And then what happens? Sometimes people get divorced. Sometimes the kids end up saying, you know what, you were never there, you were just a wallet. Imagine what that feels like when you retire. You feel disconnected from your family because you weren't there. You didn't spend the time. You didn't do the things, and you don't have the memories. You're not in any pictures or anything like that. And that company still chugging right along, making millions and millions of dollars, hiring people each and every day. And it's up to you to determine whether or not you want to travel more and stress less. It's totally up to you. So I'm gonna tell you like the lady, the sweet lady that told me when I was in Puerto Rico that you can't just sit in a hotel. You have to get out in the world. You have to see it. Now, if you don't want to travel by yourself, I'm sure you can get you a person that'll travel with you. But ask some questions before you start traveling with these people, because you got some folks when they travel, they don't want to go on like excursions. They're afraid to do everything, or they want you to get up at a certain time. See, like when I go on vacation, I like to lay in bed, at least, Lord forgive me, at least till about 10 o'clock, because by that time, my stomach is open, it's hungry. So I have to get up and I have to eat something. And then after I eat, then I like to, go and walk and see the sights and, take in some things. And then I like to do a little excursion, get on a yacht, have a dinner cruise or something like that, or go lay on the beach, or do a hike, go see a castle. I mean, I like to do lots of different things because of what I was exposed to, when I first started working, because it opened that part of my mind to say, you know what, there's so much out in the world. Why am I tying myself to just one thing? You don't have to dedicate yourself to work, but you should dedicate yourself to self-preservation, to love, to your family, to your friends. not to the company that you work for. Sure, you hear people saying that they work for companies for 30 plus years. That was my father's generation. Yes, my dad worked for 36 years at one place. And it's like, how many vacations do you remember going on? And my dad will tell you he was more concerned with paying bills and taking care of us. That was what was important to him. So now it's like they're in a very good, very comfortable state. But I'm sure if I were to say, hey, 20 years ago, would you have gone on a vacation to, I don't know, Smoky Mountains or something? Go get a cabin. Would you enjoy it? Probably not, because we live in the woods anyway. But I mean, if we were to pick somewhere, that they would like to see, they probably would have said yes. And it probably would have lightened their stress load because they got away from the monotony of every day. So is that you? Are you constantly going to work and being the very best employee, but you're not celebrating the fruit of your labor? That is something that I would suggest that you do today. As soon as you get off work, dream about where you want to go. Take some steps. Get you a travel agent. Do some research about the place that you want to go. Start saving the money for the trip. Because, it's one thing to pay for the trip, but you got to have some money when you get there because you got to eat. You got to see some sights. You got to do some fun things. You can't just go there and sit in the hotel. Because once you go there and you start experiencing things there, you'll notice that your blood pressure automatically starts to lower because it's so beautiful and everything smells so good and all the foods taste so good. And then at the end of it, you dread going home. So if that's you, then what are you waiting for? You have the money. What's the point of working every day, but you can't give yourself anything wonderful to reward yourself for your labor? I don't know. So all I can say is travel more and stress less. The job will be there. And if it's not, there's always another job, or you can become an entrepreneur. This has been Embracing the Vibes, and I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. I truly hope that you enjoyed the episode today. And as always, I want you all to have an absolutely amazing day.